part 3 of the future of TESOL. I'm still responding to the question, do we still need native English speaker teachers? And I'm getting to the third reason for the demise of nests, and that is the rise of a real revolution in call. And so this particular part of the lecture about the future of TESOL is called This is Hal, My Conversation Partner. Okay, so we've looked at the first reason for the demise of nests, that's losing brand exclusivity. And then 2, we talked about the rise of English as a lingua franca. And now 3, we're looking at the rise of digitized conversation partners. You probably remember that the reference to HAL is to a computer in 2001 Space Odyssey. HAL really had a mind of his own and was not a particularly nice conversation partner, but it did suggest that sometime in the future we might have computers that could begin to think and speak and interact with humans, hopefully in positive ways, but in this particular movie it was a very negative interaction. This is Yorick Wilkes, and he's part of a team of linguists, computer scientists, and he's based at the University of Sheffield, and he's been working now for many years along with a larger team at Sheffield University and at Oxford University on a particular project that's been started by the European Union, and it's called the Senior Companions Project. And I'm talking about this particular project as a way into talking about language companions. This particular need that the European Union identified was the growing number of older people living by themselves. And this is part of the growing numbers of the older population, the silver tsunami, as it's called. It was an attempt, it is an attempt, to address the problems of old people living by themselves and what technology could do to help these older people living by themselves. So, what is a senior companion? Well, firstly, it's not a robot as we would imagine a robot to be. And it could take the form of many things. It could be a talking head on a TV screen, like you're looking at the talking head of Furby. And Furby is a toy that is a pretty primitive conversation partner. It could be a persistent voice in one's mobile phone that knew its users' needs and habits. It could be a furry handbag that sat beside an old person on a sofa and chatted to them. Yes, that sounds weird, doesn't it? But the point is, the companion could take any particular form. And the conversation could be about what TV they watch, and it could remind them to take their pills. Remind them to go to an appointment, buy a present for a grandchild. So these are all the kinds of things that a senior companion could do, and it could take any particular form. We have arrived at the technology. The technology is ready. So speech research and dialogue management technology is now at a point where a trial companion is perfectly feasible. And later on, I provide a link to where they're at in this particular project, and you'll get an idea of what a companion looks like. One of the things, of course, that a senior companion can do is not only help the older person with their everyday tasks, taking pills, remembering to do things, but it also can mediate uh, between information sources. Um, that's Siri. Siri is pretty primitive, really. We're talking about a particular type of Siri, which is far more advanced and can help, especially people who are not so good at using technology, to be able to make decisions and to connect them with particular sources that they need to do. You know, it can call up a son or a daughter on Skype and things like that. Or even ask, do you want to do this? It's 8 o'clock. You usually talk to your son Bill at this time. Shall I call him? Um, Stakeholders on board. What that means is the people involved are really ready to do this. And that might strike you as kind of worrisome. There are many people, of course, who are horrified at the thought that old people are going to be talking to these kinds of companions. They're talking to robots. And why shouldn't they have human interaction? Well, the problem is it's hard to provide that human interaction. So this is the next best thing. We know that the elderly who have pets tend to live longer because of that companionship. And we also know that, as with pets, humans are kind of willing to attribute some kind of positive personality traits to these kinds of imitative and personalized computers. In the same way, we give names to our cars. Well, I don't, but many people do. So there is a response to these kinds of conversation partners, which is on the whole positive by the people who need to use them. One other thing which, and just to give you an example of how a senior companion can work in a very specific way, and a specific way to maintain the cognitive development of the senior person. And this is linked to a project which is called Memories for Life. And how this works is that the computer, or whatever the companion looks like, onto it we load all the family albums of photographs, all the photos for the last 40, 50 years with information about them. And so the senior person can interact talking about the photographs. So let's say our senior companion can say, well, tell me about this photograph. And your grandmother says, well, that's that's my sister Betty, and that's my sister's husband George. And the computer or the robot, the companion, can say, well, you told me that your sister's name was Monica last time we talked. Oh, yeah, that's right, says your grandmother. And you get an idea now how you could see how cognitive awareness can be maintained and even developed by these kinds of interactions. And these interactions, of course, are better than no interactions. That's where we're at now in terms of the Companions project. And there's an avatar that you can talk to. And if you go to that particular link, and you can get to that link in the folder there, you can see where they're at. It's a little scary, I'm going to tell you. It's still a work in progress, but you can get an idea of where it's going and the particular potential it can fulfill. Okay, so if we now move on to another project, and this is Junior Companions, and these are companions not for older people but for children. So let's think of the kinds of things it can do. Maybe the companion is in a backpack, or it is the backpack, and what it can do is teach and advise. It can warn of dangerous situations. Just a minute, Johnny. Let's look left and look right. This is a very busy road. Okay, let's go. It can give help with homework and web search. Or you can ask it, can you find me some information about what's the right answer here? Or how do I do this? And the junior companion can respond. Help with languages. We'll talk more about that in a moment. It always knows where the child is. The ultimate surveillance tool. And it can explain ambient signals and information. It could actually or explain things as the child walks around town to the child. It can explain sounds or things you need to do or the way you have to do something. Um, and it potentially is what e-learning might really mean. So let's have a look at what that could be in terms of a language learning companion. So now let's specifically look at language learning. And it's ideal for young learners, and it could take the form of a Furby, as we saw before, or a Tamagotchi, not a Tamagotcha. And we saw a picture of one of those earlier. And those were kind of primitive kind of companions, primitive language companions in a very primitive way. And it could be ideal for an only child, of course, when there's no sibling to fight with, torment, or whatever. Um, and it can give help with conversation. You can have a conversation with it. And you can also get help with grammar. You can ask it grammar questions. You can actually set it, and let's say you want to learn English. You could set it for whatever dialect or variety of English you want. You might want New Zealand English. You might want English as an international language, EIL. Or you might want English as a lingua franca. Um, that's what you want to learn. Or it could be some other variety like Chinglish, or Indian English, or Singaporean English. And it also can interact in real life situations. You could take it when you are actually talking to somebody who speaks the particular target language. Some countries have an English village where you go down to, and everybody who's there in the English village speaks English. Great ideas. Well, your learning companion, your language companion could come with you and help navigate interactions in the English village. Um, now, let's think of the step further. Never mind kids. What about adults? What about our particular needs? Well, let's imagine that we can choose our particular role model to learn from. What if I want to learn German? Okay. What if my conversational partner sounds exactly like um, um, Heidi Crumb, whatever her name is. Um, um, that would be pretty motivating for me anyway. Maybe not for you, but you can, decide who it is you want to interact with. And I think that would really motivate me to learn a lot of German. Um, and I could also, if I wanted to learn Spanish, interact, say, with Lionel Messi. So it takes on the particular biography of Lionel Messi, and I can ask Lionel about, how does he do it? How's it, what's his favorite goal you've scored? What's the best moment in a game? How do you prepare for a game? Because I'm obsessed with soccer, of course, so this would be a perfect language companion. I'm talking to him in Spanish. And every so often, Lionel might say, well, just a minute, David, I don't think quite you got your tenses correct there. So why don't you just, and I'm going to listen to him because it's Lionel Messi. And then finally, of course, we could have language um, uh, partners, conversation partners who are not actually alive but are great historical figures, just in the way that we'd read a biography. Those particular, or autobiography, they could come alive. So I could be practicing Japanese with Kurosawa, the great Japanese director, and I could talk to him and ask him about movies, and I could watch his movies and ask him stuff, and he could respond. It wouldn't be Kurosawa, of course, it'd be a voice similar to him. But all these are particular aspects of how you could begin to imagine language companions in the future. So, if I'm learning German from Heidi, do I need a native German teacher? If I'm talking to Lionel Messi, do I need to have a teacher? Etc. So think of the demand then for native English speaker teachers. It might be pretty low if people learning English decide, well, I don't want a real native English speaker teacher. I'll have a one of these conversation partners, and I can choose whoever it's going to be. So that is the final nail in the coffin of the native English speaker teacher. So we've looked now at three elements which suggest the demise of the native English speaker teacher. We've looked at the fact we're losing brand exclusivity. Most of the students in the world studying English are studying with a non-native English speaker teacher. We've looked at the language that we're offering. The demand is not so much for native English speaker teacher varieties of English, but it's for English as a lingua franca. And third, maybe we don't need a teacher at all, because we can have a real call revolution, and we can interact with people who are far more attractive than real classroom teachers.